friends, and welcome back to my channel. Well, today I'm working on the next block in the Underground Railroad series. Today I'm going to work on the log cabin block, and the log cabin block is pretty self-explanatory as far as where it originates from, but I did find out a little bit of history about it that was kind of interesting, so we'll talk about that and then we'll sew this block together. So the log cabin block, it's been a block that's been around. They've dated it to the late 1700s, early 1800s. That's about the earliest they've seen an example of one. Obviously, it was modeled off the log cabin, the actual dwelling. And one of the interesting things about the log cabin block that I did find out is that during the Civil War, people, to raise money for the Union Army, people, quilters, I guess, not just people, donated their quilts and they auctioned them off to raise money for the Union Army. And they sort of donated those ones as a tribute to President Lincoln because he was born and raised in a log cabin. So I thought that was really kind of some neat history that I found out about this one. Now, a traditional log cabin from back in those times, they would usually put a red or a yellow center in their log cabin, and the whole block was made out of scraps, but they would choose a red or a yellow center. Now, the red meant there was a fire in their hearth, come in, get warm, and the yellow center meant there was a light in the window and it was an inviting place to be. Now, during the Underground Railroad, it is thought that they put black blocks or black centers in the middle of the block. And the reason for that was to symbolize that that house, that log cabin, was part of the Underground Railroad, and this was a safe place to stop. So today I'm going to use a black center in my underground or my log cabin block for the Underground Railroad. So the rest of the colors that I picked a few different backgrounds from the other blocks that I've already done, and I also picked some different color strips because they would have made theirs scrappy back then, so they wouldn't have had just two colors or, you know, like the background and the center and then one other color. They would have had lots of different bits and pieces. This block was thought to be used to make log cabin blocks, to make a quilt for log cabins to keep them warm, and so they took whatever scraps they had to make these blocks. So that's what I did. I picked mostly from the fabrics that I've already used in the previous blocks, although I had to add a few just to get the extra different colors, but still all from the same Civil War reproduction fabrics. So I'm really excited to get this sewn. What I'm going to go over really quick and before I sew this up is my measurements, because I did not use the measurements that were in the book. I used my own measurements for this 12.5 inch block because, you know, I'm a rebel and I don't like to follow instructions. No, the truth is I didn't want to cut weird sizes, and there was like 1 3/4 and some other weird strange sizes. So what I did is I cut my own from ways I've done log cabins in the past, and I cut a 3.5 inch center, and I believe the book did a 2 or 2.5 inch. Let me grab my book over here because I wrote down the sizes I did. And then for the colored pieces, I did a 5 inch, 6.5 inch, 8 inch, 9.5 inch, 11 inch, and 12.5 inch, and these are all 2 inches wide. So this is a 3.5 inch square. These are all 2 inch wide strips. Again, 5, 6.5, 8, 9.5, 11, 12.5. And then I go to my background, and again, these are all 2 inches wide. So I did a 3.5, a 5 inch, a 6.5, 8 inch, 9.5, and 11 inch. So that's all of those. Again, 3.5, 5 inch, 6.5, 8 inch, 9.5, and 11 inch. So that's all. My background's all cut and they're all 2 inches wide. Again, just like the colored pieces. And then my center black for the Underground Railroad. So let's go ahead and get started sewing this because I'm really excited to put this one together. So as I showed you before, I have all my pieces all cut out already. So what I'm going to do first, so I don't get confused, because that is not hard to be for me to get confused, is I'm going to lay my entire block out on my mat here. in the order that I need to sew them. And this might get too big at some point where I can't put the whole thing on here, but I at least want to do a few layers to get started so I don't get confused as to which fabric goes where. So now, if you have not done a log cabin before, although probably most of you have, but if you have not, you start with your centerpiece and you just build on that centerpiece and you keep going around. Now I'm going to go counterclockwise. I've seen some people go clockwise. It doesn't matter which way, but I'm going to put this on here, add this other background piece after I've added these, add this, and keep going around like that. So that's what I'm doing right now as I'm laying out my pieces kind of around here. And each piece is increasing in size, obviously. Oops. So that one there and there. So those are all my pieces. I'm going to try to scooch these in a little bit so I have some room to sew without knocking them all over the place, but there's a good chance I'm going to do that anyway. But that's okay. All right. So you can kind of see what it's going to look like. Not quite. Now, also from the log cabin block, as you can see from this, if I put the colors here and here and put the background here and here, you'd get the courthouse steps block. And also originating from the log cabin block is the pineapple block. And I forgot to say that stuff earlier. I meant to tell you guys, but you can kind of see it more here on my board. Because if I moved the colored pieces here and put the backgrounds here, that would be a courthouse step block. So interesting that the log cabin spurred those other blocks. So let's go ahead and get started sewing. So I'm going to grab my center piece here and my first background piece, which was the 3.5 inch by 2 inch. And I'll try to remember to say the sizes as I go here. Now with this, you're going to want to press really good in between each. I know it can be a pain, but press really good in between each bit, because that's what's going to help your log cabin block to come out the correct size. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to finger press, and then you guys know I love my magic juice, so I'm going to go ahead and give it some magic juice. And for those of you who don't know what this is the Acorn Easy Press Precision Piecing Pen, and that is a mouthful. I lovingly call it magic juice because it makes your blocks magically, your seams magically flat. You just apply it to the seams and you get super, super flat blocks. So I love it. So, aka magic juice. That's what I'll refer to it in my video. So there's my first piece. And because I have everything pre-cut at this point, I don't need rulers, rotary cutters. I just need my iron and my magic juice. And I'm going to add the next piece, which is a 2 inch by 5 inch piece, onto the left side of this guy here. We're going counterclockwise for this one. Now you may have started building with your lights on the right hand side. That's okay too. Then you'll, I believe you'll go clockwise if you did that. But it also depends on how you lay out your pieces. Like if you started with this one down here, you'd go clockwise, but I'm going counterclockwise. Whichever way you're doing it, you want to make sure you're just going around and around that centerpiece. And it's going to build bigger and bigger. So we're going to keep going here. Put this guy on the bottom. I'll just do a couple more strips with you and then I will finish them and show you my end result. So you don't have to sit here and watch me put strips on for the next 20 minutes. But I want to give you an idea of what the log cabin looks like as we go here. So that's our first colored piece, and that looks lovely. I like the way that that looks on there. Oops. I love the color symbolization that they talked about with the historic quilts, about how if it had a red center, it meant there was a warm fire for travelers, and the light in the window for the yellow one. And then they said if you saw the quilt hanging on a clothesline and it had the black center, that's when it symbolized the safe house for the escaped slaves to stop and get some rest, get some food. A lot of times people that helped them tried to also give them fresh clothes if they could. You know, a lot of people unfortunately didn't have a lot of things back then to share, but from everything I've read, if they could help them with those kind of things, they did. So, but just giving them a safe place to sleep for the night. I can't even imagine walking all the way from somewhere in the south up to Lake Erie to get across this huge lake that looks like an ocean. And lots of people that have come to visit us since I live in Ohio and right by the lake have asked us what ocean this is, because they don't know their geography, and we've had visitors from other countries that came over and said that because they didn't know. And we kind of chuckled because we're like, it's not an ocean, it's a lake. But it's so big that it's intimidating and it looks like an ocean. So I can imagine walking all that way to get to this lake and then looking at it going, gosh, now what? So it's nice that there was people along the way that helped them. All right, so that's the center of my log cabin. I'm going to keep going and I'll put the next background piece and then go with the colors and keep going, and eventually we're going to make this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and keep recording, but at some point I'm going to speed this up so you can watch, but it won't take 20 minutes of me sewing, and you can see how I get this done. Okay, so there's my log cabin block all done. Let me double check the size of it here. It is 12.5 that way. And 12.5 that way. So, perfect. So, Acorn for the win. Yay! So again, this center block was 3.5 inches square. Each of these pieces around were 2.5 inches wide. And then all the measurements I gave you, the 3.5, 5 inch, 6.5, 8 inch, 9.5, 11 inch, and finally the 12.5 inch piece. So if you would like to make yours like mine, those are the sizes again. And let's see this all together with our blocks on the wall. Okay, so that was our log cabin block. Oh, I really like how that one turned out. Really pretty. I'm glad I used all the different colors from the previous blocks. So that'll look really nice with those other blocks up there. So we have a few more blocks yet to go, several actually. But I'm really excited to keep working on this and get it done. Thank you so much for joining me for this series. It sounds like there's a lot of you out there who have had the Underground Railroad book for quite a long time, and this has inspired you to get it out and work on it. So yay, that's a win. So thank you so much for being here with me, all of you. And if you're just finding me now, all the rest of these blocks are up on my channel. As I've told you every week, I'm doing my blocks my own way. So don't get mad if I'm not following the book. I'm using the book as a reference as far as what blocks need to be in the quilt, but I'm not necessarily following their directions or their measurements. And as you know, you can tell from this week, if you have the book, I didn't follow them. So I'm being a rebel. I'm doing my own thing. So if you want to do it the way I'm doing, just watch the videos and you could slow it down, pause it, restart it, whatever you need to do to get the sizes. But I really love how they're turning out. I really love this one. It's one of my favorites so far. So enjoy, and I will see you guys really soon. Take care. Bye.